If Trump does follow through with the very high tariffs that he has threatened to impose on China, we will see definitely retaliatory tariffs from China, and those will be, I think, targeted to hurt Trump's support base.
President-elect Donald Trump is continuing to build his cabinet, his top team, ahead of taking over in January. Now, the U.S. Senator Marco Rubio looks likely to take on the role of Secretary of State, the foreign secretary in the Trump administration. He's a China hawk. He's been sanctioned in the past by Beijing. Let's talk to William Matthews then, who's Chatham House Senior Research Fellow for the Asia Pacific Program. Hello to you, William.
Hi, John. Thanks
Hi.
for having me on.
You're welcome. It's very, very clear, William, that American policy is about to become much more hostile towards China in particular.
Hmm. Yes, yes, it is. I mean, Trump has made sort of no secret about his attitudes towards China economically, particularly, but what we've seen now with the probable appointment of Marco Rubio as Secretary of State, and also Michael Waltz as National Security Advisor, that's two very prominent China hawks who have also been very vocal in the past about their support for Taiwan and the need for US commitment there.
Yeah, as and when those tariffs, those trade charges are levied, heavy ones on Chinese imports into America, how do you anticipate China will react to that?
Uh, I mean, I think we can expect a return to the trade wars that we saw in the first Trump administration, but it's going to be ramped up significantly. If Trump does follow through with the very high tariffs that he has threatened to impose on China, we will see definitely retaliatory tariffs from China, and those will be, I think, targeted to hurt Trump's support base as far as possible.
Yeah, meaning what? Sort of commonly used consumer goods?
Yeah, so that could target consumer goods, but I mean, if things get very bad, these could start targeting things like even things like critical minerals and so on that go into core strategic supply chains as well for the United States. So I think, a big difference this time is that Beijing is much more prepared. They've learned from the first Trump administration, and they've had time to, prepare for retaliation for a second.
Right. So and Donald Trump, we know, has it in mind to whack down charges, big ones on China, but also on other countries around the world. I mean, Europe as well, and us as things stand, unless some sort of deal is done to avoid that. What about countries doing business with China when that trade war starts? Could there be American action to confront them?
That's difficult to anticipate. I mean, I think the key thing for US allies who, like the UK, who have been, aligned broadly with the US on a lot of sort of policies towards China in the past, I think we're actually going to see some shift there. If Trump does what he's said he'll do and actually start implementing tariffs across the board, that's going to force countries like the UK and other US allies to have to think about how they weigh up their relationships both with the US and with China, because the economic importance of China is not going to go away.
Okay. Now what about Taiwan? So there'll be trade war, economic war waged on China. Joe Biden, who's still the president, has been pretty clear that if Taiwan is to be invaded by China, China has long-standing ambitions towards the island of Taiwan. How do you anticipate a Trump administration would respond to that?
I mean, I think first thing to sort of bear in mind with Taiwan, so, Taiwan compared to China, 23 million people, about 100 miles off the Chinese coast, regarded as a renegade province by Beijing, but de facto independent. I mean, China, it's no secret that Xi Jinping and the Chinese Communist Party have a very long-standing ambition to take Taiwan and unify it with the mainland. Honestly, though, I don't think that's going to come through the form of a full-scale invasion. An amphibious invasion across the Taiwan Straits would be extremely difficult. The stakes are extremely high if it were to fail. What we're going to see, I think, is a continued ramping up of Chinese operations around Taiwan, military exercises, and so on, intensification of that, particularly if there's signs of deepening US support for Taiwan under the Trump
But
administration.
so you don't believe that this is likely, but were there to be an action against Taiwan by China, a military action, would Trump react in anything like the same way as Joe Biden?
My impression is that, and Trump has run a campaign, as being a candidate of peace, and going into a war with China over Taiwan would be about as unpeaceful as you could go.
He's against foreign wars. He's against foreign wars, and
Yes,
that's the part of his defining positions. Have to leave it there though now for the moment. I'm sure we will come back. William Matthews at Chatham House. Thank you.